So, I'm Andrew Bacon. I work at the Oaks Center for Educational Advancement with Dr. Hyatt, who is the founder and CEO. We are going to talk a little bit about sort of the sum total of a bunch of the things that we do, professional development and coaching and mentoring, and how they all come together to do something bigger and more important, which is, what do we do when a school's in trouble? When a whole school needs a philosophical transformation, when a school needs a cultural shift that will make the services that it offers to its students and the way that it treats the teachers and everything that it does more effective. So I'd like to start by just asking, what are the red flags? What are the things that we are looking for when we see that a school might need some help?
Okay. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for being here for the final session. I know it's been a long day, but we're really excited to be here and be presenting, and we'd like to also hopefully engage you in a little discussion if we have time. So when you think about red flags, I mean, there's so many challenges in schools today, and so we're just going to talk about a couple of the major challenges or red flags, and one of them is top-down leadership, and that extends beyond education. I see some of you nodding your heads, so.
You were just talking about this.
Yes, right? This whole notion of somebody saying, this is how it has to be, this is why, it's a rigid structure, and I see that a lot in the work that we do, especially in more traditional schools, where there are leaders handing down an agenda. And then also with students and teachers, right? In classrooms, teachers want to maintain control. And so there's, the less innovative approach is, okay, I'm going to get up here and lecture and make it rigid and focus on content rather than focusing on learning goals and skills and really interacting with students. So that's one of the major challenges.
So there's a fundamental conflict in a way between the idea of accountability and the way that public officials or the public at large asks schools and educators to prove that they're doing their job right. You have to measure that. You have to tell them why you're doing a good job. And those things generally take the form of standards that are written down and passed down. So we've got a top-down structure that all of the schools and all of the administrators and all of the teachers and all of the students in some way unknowingly are serving. There's a built-in tension there between trying to get a school not to be top-down and be accountable to a system that is top-down.
Yeah, that's a major struggle, not just in education, but in other industries as well. And so I guess a question is, how do you leverage change within a structure that can be really top-down, where you have state guidelines that you have to follow and school districts mandating what has to happen, right? And there are so many schools that are doing innovative things. This is, just a generalization about some of this structure, but there are ways to address that.
Okay, so it happens at every level. A district controls the schools control their teachers, the teachers control their students. Does this just all come from the top down? Are there districts that are more innovative that give their teachers and students more freedom 3 steps down the ladder of accountability?
Well, absolutely. I mean, it's hard to generalize. We're such a big country, and there's so many different types of educational institutions. So yeah, there are definitely ways that teachers can engage, schools can engage, right? And even within a rigid structure.
How have some of the schools that you've worked with done that, been innovative and been effective in making change while reporting to this rigid structure? Have you got an example of something like that?
Sure. So there are collaborative structures in schools where teachers can interact with each other, right? Where they're giving agency and voice in the classroom. Do you want a specific example? Or? Okay, so I'm trying to think of a specific example. All right, here's one. So I was hired, or we were hired by a school organization, a charter school organization. They wanted a mentoring program for their beginning teachers, and they said, you know, we're just not. We're in this program that's very rigid, and we're answering to state guidelines, and teachers don't have a lot of choice, and we want something that really is more aligned to our mission and vision. You know, we're an anti-racist school. We believe in teacher identity. We believe in reaching all kids. We believe in community. How do we do that? And so we engaged in a 1.5 year process of design that incorporated all stakeholders, right? So we had teachers and kids and people who are already mentoring and school leaders. And so it really takes that collaborative effort and that, you know, just really leveling the playing field. And it also takes a lot of buy-in. If school leaders can't buy in, then it becomes much more challenging. But our challenge in that structure was we still have to answer to state standards, right? The state of California is saying you have to do these things to demonstrate that teachers are actually learning and growing and developing their skills in this program. So how can you be more innovative within a structure of rules or more rigidity? And we were able to do that.
I think that really demonstrates that tension between top-down accountability and bottom-up creativity, and the sort of ongoing battle that a lot of people probably who aren't in education probably don't have any idea about, I would imagine. But I wouldn't know because I don't know them. What other red flags are there besides control issues, besides top-down authoritative presentation or operation that go into determining whether a school might be ripe for some sort of transformational shift like we're talking about?
Well, okay, this goes back to that top-down rigidity. Teachers not feeling like they have any autonomy and kids feeling like they have no voice. And that contributes to a lot of teacher turnover. It contributes to, you know, a more dysfunctional dynamic in schools. So that's one aspect. I think another is lack of resources, that we are strapped in our schools, right? And they're all resourced differently depending on where we are in the US. And so some schools have lots and lots of resources and lots of money, and some have none. And I started my career in a school that had no resources in Oakland, California, just very bare minimum, 45 kids in a portable classroom, trying to figure out like just how to get through the day. So, you know, the resources are a major challenge.
A lack of resources in that way, when teachers are expected almost to go and spend their own money to buy materials to get a classroom to a point where it can work at all, it seems like not a morale booster.
No, yes, it's not a morale booster for sure. And of course, we care about our kids. We care about, you know, making sure that they're successful. I mean, and they're coming sometimes with limited resources. So as educators, we are spending our own money. We are, you know, investing our time, our energy, our money in ways to leverage reaching kids. And yeah, it can be a little bit demoralizing in some ways. We need more money. We need more resources.
But positive begets positive, and negative begets negative. And if you end up in a spiral that goes the wrong way, you end up with a failing system, which a lot of people think that we're in right now, which is there are lots and lots of reasons, lots and lots of good points to be made that the education system that we've got is failing our kids. And so that's one of the reasons why we're all here to try to figure out some ways that we could do that. So let's move from what are the red flags that tell us about a school that needs some help to what does a school look like after it's been helped? What is the ideal end state for a school that has, and I don't want to put a finality on this because there isn't any end to this process. You get better and you get better and you get better, but you never get where to the end of all things because knowledge continues to increase and we continue to get better. But what does a school look like once it's gone through one of these transformational shifts, and what are the differences that you see when we end up at a place that's better?
Well, one of the major differences is just making sure that there's more equalized leadership. So leveraging expertise within schools, also listening to kids' voices, like forming panels and groups where kids' voices are actually heard, incorporating kids' perspectives into how they learn and how they're assessed. You know, one example is saying, okay, here we are, we're engaged in this learning process, and we're going to, have this, here are our learning goals and our outcomes. How do you think you should be assessed and why? Right, really involving them in the decision-making process, which I've done a number of times. And it's hard to do, right? And it can be really messy because you want to go in and say, okay, here's our outcomes, here's where we're headed, here's how I'm assessing you. I have a vision. I'm the expert. I'm the person who's educated in the room. But without their voices, right, then you don't have that authentic buy-in from your students. And they know what they need too. I mean, they all have, very different ways of learning and various challenges.
It seems like it's really easy for people who are quote unquote in charge of something to slip into that top down, I'll say authoritarian rather than dictatorial way of running things. Here's how it's going to be because I know the answer and you all are going to do it this way. It's easier to run something that way, but the harder way is better.
Yeah, learning is messy. I mean, and I think this is probably true in other industries as well, right? So we need to have collective voice. We need to work together. And it's not easy and it's not pretty. And it's so much easier in some ways to come in and say, I have a vision and this is how we're doing it. And, and it's this rigid approach, but it doesn't impact kids. It doesn't impact teachers. It doesn't give people agency. It doesn't leverage learning in a way that reaches everyone.
So it sounds like, democratizing from the bottom up, all the way from students to teachers to administrators to districts. The actual democratization of something, although not formal and not elective, is something that improves outcomes and improves morale and addresses multiple problems at the same time.
Yes, and here's two examples. So one is a school with a leader who says, okay, we have a very kind of traditionalist approach to education. Our teachers lecture a lot. We're losing students. This is an independent school in California. And how do we shift that? And how do we make learning more student-centered and differentiated? And how do we approach all these different levels of learning? Where do we start? We have a lot of work to do, and change takes time, and change takes buy-in, right? And leveraging all these relationships. And so this particular school leader said, how do we work from the bottom up? Like, how can we all work together? Another example is another school that wants to be very innovative, and the school leader is very authoritarian, however, presents in a way of saying, oh, we're all in this together. I'm going to form all these panels and gather your input, but really has an agenda on the other side, right? And is carrying out a methodical plan and is, just like, I guess it's like a pretend, buy-in or a pretend collaboration. And so those are two very different models in schools that we've worked in.
It sounds to me even more morale destroying to have a leader pretend to pay attention and then do what they're going to do anyway and ignore all your input than it would be if they just were honest about it and just gave orders, although that's terrible. That's how that worked. That particular person is losing tons of her staff, so because they're quitting. So okay, that was depressing.
I can add to that one. All right.
Go ahead.
And yeah, we're curious too. Because I did say I wanted it to be more interactive. Like, what are some of what you've all experienced?
So I'm an educator for mathematics, and your plan that you described very much the school which I've worked in for a very long time. So we are a Title I school, but within it we have a magnet school, which is a smaller school that operates slightly differently from the school itself, with a gifted and talented program. And we experiment with a lot of the ideas that you're talking about, empowering the students, empowering the parents, giving much more freedom to the education as a whole, community-based learning among the students, where I'm up there for a very brief amount of time talking about the mathematics, and then I let my little Greyhound student run with it.
Yes.
Is that because they're fast?
I can't keep up.
Nice. So the Greyhound metaphor is because they're so fast. Yeah, okay.
It's exciting, it's rewarding, it does work, but we have some terrible burnout and some unfortunate occurrences that always get in the way. That I think that we as you know, when we look to find the solution from educators and administrators, we will fail. We have to have a very large, almost media. We need to get away where we have the students and the parents all fighting together to improve the classroom and the educational system. The big thing that interferes with this model that you're describing is it works beautifully for several years until one family is upset. And then there is the complaints, there's the hostility, there's the challenge, and the administrator is under the legal gun.
Yes.
And we have to go back to the rigid system. Okay, all this flexibility, all this freedom, look at the results. Holy cow, our kids have done amazing. We have to stop now.
Because one person out of 100 has another idea.
Yeah,
And
that does happen.
We find our teachers that are like absolutely loved by the students and the parents are suddenly yanked from the classroom. And we have a complete disruption of this educational process to the students. The parents don't understand what's going on. It's all done in complete secrecy. Well, why did, Mrs. So-and-so suddenly vanish? Oh, we can't talk about that. But it's a complaint. When you bring in this flexibility, when you bring in this student freedom, there's always a small percent that doesn't operate well within it.
Yeah, and the question is like, how do we address that, right? Because
And how do we protect our teachers? And how do we protect our administrators? And how can we still even help that family? It includes the whole family. It's not just the child, it's the family as well. How can we help them? How can we give them what they need without destroying what we've been working on for years?
yes.
Because your method is very fragile. And that's why we always go back to this rigid method of education that's broken.
It is, and it's why I started this organization. I saw a need, and it's really hard work, right? And it's slow and painful at times. But yes, we do operate within this rigid structure, and that's what we default back to. What's comfortable? What we know, right? This more industrialized model of education. So,
It's a safer one.
yes, it's
Simpler. One of the most
Simpler,
one of the
safer, yeah.
one of the most intense things that I experienced when I started working with Dr. Hyatt at the Oaks, being having a technological background. I'm an IT background, digital communications background. Was how much more difficult this is. And you mentioned this earlier. Computers don't talk back. They don't say no. They just tell you if you're wrong. And then you give them new instructions, and then they're right. And you give them new instructions until it works right, and then you're done. And this is human. And it's not just students, and it's not just teachers, it's parents, and it's the people that you're talking about, the 1 out of 100 that's like, I'm scared by this idea, and it did something I don't like, so I'm going to dedicate my life to stopping it. And you have to bring them in. And you have to figure out a way to reach them and make it okay. And sometimes it's just not possible. But the thing that strikes me about being relatively new to the education space is just stop for a second and give yourself some credit for working in one of the most difficult environments, one of the most impossible environments to get the right answer that I have ever seen in my entire life.
we have some input.
One point actually, because you just talked about, I will always say I have so much respect for teachers. I don't know what to say. I'm a doctor actually, but I think they're
I
not.
have a lot of respect for doctors.
Yeah, but they're not compensated enough. I think we should really advocate for them to get paid better, because think about this: all these professions they're coming from schools because of the teachers. I think it all starts with the teachers. So I think it's Germany or one of these countries. Yeah, one of the European countries, they actually pay teachers the most. And I agree with that because teachers, I cannot teach kids. They're amazing, you know, some of these teachers, I have so much respect for them. So I think compensation also, we don't like to talk about money, but it make a difference because I heard over the years with my 3 kids, I'm not paid enough to deal with this, you know, and I don't want to say I agree with that, but I feel like I sympathize with that. I mean, their job is hard. Math teacher, I can't imagine, or English, you know, whatever the topic. But I think to be a teacher is amazing, you know, and advocating for their pay, I'll be the first one, honestly, to do that. I think they should be valued more and respected more.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
right? It's one of the most
Yeah.
undervalued professions in
Right.
our country and in other countries as well. And why? Because like you said, everything stems from education, all these opportunities.
Right. There before, because of my teacher, I'm like this. Because of her teacher, you know, I mean, we all came from some teacher, you know what I mean? So we should really respect them and pay them more, in my opinion.
I think one of the reasons that it is hard to make that, I don't want to say it the wrong way, but to make that sale, to convince people that teachers are worth being paid more, the answer that you get is, well, prove it. Prove you're worth it. And then, yes, but prove it in a way that the legislature can understand. And so then you have to come up with a set of numbers that says, here's what you did better, and here's why it's true, and all of this stuff, and then you end up with standardized testing, and we know where that goes. And so that's,
Yes.
so
Yes.
it's that tension again. That's top down and bottom up. That's exactly where we started the conversation. And it's not ever going to be easy, and we just have to keep hacking at it until we find the best answer. And that's one of the things that Dr. Hyatt and I work on all the time, is trying to find better answers for small things and being able to figure out small ways forward, because every small thing multiplied 1,000 times is a big thing. Do 1,000 of them.
And we have another question or comment.
I'm not an educator, but I have high respect for educators because I build the technology platform for education. So like I work on the nation's report card, the NAEP project. So
Oh, wow.
I have I'm just thinking back, right? So whether is it the curriculum to blame, right? So what I'm saying is it the what I find amongst my son who graduated, all his peers, like he graduated from computer science, but all his peers don't have a job. Like the industry is like, what are we producing from the education system? There is a total gap with respect to what the industry needs, right? So I think it's high time we collaborate from a technical viewpoint
Yes.
with the educators to build a platform that works together, right? Because
Let's do it.
yeah,
We're here.
I know, we have all these powerful people in the room.
Yeah, here you
Let's
go.
find some
Yeah.
innovative solutions.
Well, I think the solution, because this is, oh, go ahead.
Yeah, so everyone can hear you.
I'm sorry,
Don't mean to be taken over, but I'm a math teacher. I do this all the time. Sorry. I think your concerns are vital to education, and a lot of the standards and the curriculums failed to achieve what our students and your children need. And the route to it is getting those students to be independent and in charge of their own education and active in building the environment. Everything that you need for your children won't exist in the school system unless what they're doing takes place. So, and we know this in the GT program. We get this chance to experiment. Our little guinea pig kids, we're like guinea pigs on our kids, right? You know, test them, send them through the wheel and see what happens. When we put the learning in their charge, we're teaching them to think. I'm not teaching them, hey, this is the flow chart to understanding mathematics. What we do is, this is the shape of mathematics. This is its form, its motion. Where are you sending it? And you can't do it unless you accomplish what they're doing. And to keep what they're doing alive, more than money, you have to protect the administrators, you have to protect the teachers from everything that they've been working for being turned off and shut down instantly because of a complaint and a lawsuit.
I would also, I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, but I would like to call back to, I've lost my train of thought, I'm sorry, I got caught up in apologizing and forgot what I was going to say. Please continue.
And
Right.
I know we're almost out of time as well.
Yeah, I just kind of wanted you to elaborate on that. As a parent whose child is going to be school age in a year, how do we do that? Like, how do we, I mean, do I need to put on my cape and go down to the administrator's office? Like, how do we help as parents, or parents, you know, local community, how do we help to make sure that things like that don't happen?
No, go. I actually want you to answer that question, and then I have an answer too.
Yeah, you stepped in it now, brother. Welcome to the show.
Is there another chair up there?
Yes, actually, why don't you come on up here?
You can have mine. I do like digital communication.
No. I'll just take somebody's purse, move it there.
It's Dr. Hyatt.
Sweating up a storm now.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so yeah, I'm not an expert on this, but yeah, maybe I do kind of sound pretty passionate about it. We work very hard in our program, and it is well known nationally, but it is under a lot of attack. I think a lot of the trouble that we are having in education is we keep looking to the administrators, we keep looking to the teachers, we keep looking to even our legislators and saying, hey, how can we fix it? You know, teachers do what they do not for the money. If all we were doing it was for the money, we're a group of people who are not very bright. Because there's no money in what we do.
Not sure
and we
about
know
your
this.
messaging, positioning here, man.
Right,
but
we know this. We do it because we believe in it. We're passionate. We care about your kids, even the ones we sometimes want to strangle. You know, we do care about all the kids. But I think what we need is, and I don't have an easy way to do this. This isn't a teacher-driven thing. This is a family-driven thing. You want to help. Your child is getting ready to go into school. I think it's you and hundreds of thousands of more moms and dads just like you who say to their kids, hey, school's a good thing. You know, there's a lot of positive things. Yes, you're going to have some hard times because middle school is kind of like a scary place, even for the teachers. But you start creating, what's the word I'm looking for? Like a nonprofit, an organization, a podcast, a social media community where you're bringing up the positives of education, the positives of what you experienced when you were young. And sometimes that means including some of the unfortunate things. And what did you gain out of the negative moments in education? Because even our suffering makes us stronger and makes us better people and defines who we are.
Only.
Well, no, some of my successes really did a good job on me too. but yeah, you're right. But the hardships are often positives. There's a positive element into it.
You
But
had an
we're-
answer to her question as well.
We're focusing on the negative as a nation, and we really need more families to step up and start being heard. Social media lets everyone be heard, but we're listening to the negative right now. We're negative driven. And if we can find as a community, as a nation, as a people, talking more about the positives, you know, I think we'll start being heard.
And I was
And
just,
you don't have to pay us more then.
I was just going to add to that. Community, all of us coming together as a community, right? Leveraging, I think we were talking about this earlier, the grassroots, small change, small start. What's a small step I can take today, right? How can we all take a small step forward? What does that look like? How do we involve communities in our schooling, whether it's parents, organizations, you know, I mean, there's so many multifaceted aspects of community, and too often schools are siloed.
And to one little thing that occurred to me, get to know your teacher. Go, right? It's a community and it's all relationship based, and trust comes from familiarity and the understanding that somebody's going to do something a certain way or apply a certain amount of brain power or have a certain perspective or have a certain sensitivity. And in order to know what all of those things are, we need to get to know all of the people who are working to educate our kids. You're going to be running the PTA board, and yeah, it's going to be frustrating.
Thank you so much to our panelists and our extra guests. We always want a teacher voice at the table.